Hello and welcome to YPO Present Ask the Expert. My name is Håkon Lund, the managing partner of Lund Gruppen and also fourth generation in my family business, which operate in the tourism and the entertainment space. Today, I'm joined by two amazing business leaders, Fatima, Asad-Said, and Luis Recinos, to discuss some of the challenges facing family business and how global leaders are solving these issues. Welcome, Fatima, and welcome, Luis.
Hello, it's great to
Thank
be
you.
here.
So where are you guys connecting from, Fatima? Where are you connecting from today?
I'm connecting from Pakistan, Lahore, Pakistan.
Okay, and Luis, where are you connecting from?
I'm connected all the way from Guatemala City in Central America.
Wow, and I'm connecting from Sweden today, so that's great. It's a pure global connection here. So, Fatima, would you like to share a little bit about more your background and experience and your company?
Yes, thank you very much. And first of all, thank you for the opportunity, YPO, to share my thoughts and be part of this amazing panel and group. My own background, I'm with Abacus Consulting. I'm currently leading it as CEO, which is a professional services firm focused on technology, consulting, and outsourcing solutions. We've been creating the future of business as we term it for the last 35 years. I'm an MBA from the leading university in Pakistan, and I started my career with Coopers and Lybrand, and then which subsequently became PricewaterhouseCoopers. My functional or technical background is from human capital, corporate governance, change management, and then when I was part of Abacus, I became part of the leadership team, became a member of the board, and started working with the transformation that was taking place within Abacus in terms of technology innovation as we provided business solutions to our clients across sectors and industries, not only in Pakistan, but now we're currently servicing 4 continents, and we have our member firms which are positioned across different parts of the world as well. And that's a bit about me right now. In addition to that, I also sit on as an independent director on 5 other boards. 3 are non-for-profit, which is something very close to my heart in the space of education and women development and microfinance. And 2 are public listed companies, including a Middle Eastern commercial bank. So thank you once again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Fatima. And you started outside the family business and then transformed over to the family business. So hopefully we'll get to address that a little bit. So, Luis, over to you. I know you're the owner of one family business, but you're not the operator. And then you're working in another family business, which you're not the owner. You're able to see from both sides. So give us some more background of your situation and your companies.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, first of all, I'm flattered to be here, and I'm very excited to have this opportunity to share. And as you mentioned, I live the 2 sides of what goes on in family businesses. I'm a non-executive director. I mean, a non-executive board member in my family's sugar and energy business. I'm 3rd generation. And although I wouldn't say my role is passive, because I'm actively involved in all the family dynamics, the setting of the strategy and strategic projects execution. So it's quite exciting. But on the other hand, I'm the corporate managing director of CMI, which is a diversified conglomerate with a strong presence in Central America and the Caribbean. It's also a family business that has been running for more than 100 years. It's not my family, as I said before. I'm an executive here, but my role involves a close working within the family dynamics. CMI, it's very diversified. We have more than 30 lines of businesses. As I said, we have more than 100 years of history, and we have around 40,000 employees. We are in the food sector and in the intensive capital sector. So in both experiences, I have lived firsthand all the different family dynamics, the pros and cons, although there are many more pros than cons. So it's excited. I'm an industrial engineer from NC State, and I have an MBA from the Kellogg School of Management. And I'm a father, and I'm also a gratitude explorer. That's what I call myself.
I love that gratitude explorer phrase. So all of us belong to the Global Family Business Network, which is one of many networks that YPO offer. And if you don't know what YPO is, and I think both Fatima and Luis has kind of hit it on a nail, it's a global leadership community driven by the shared belief that the world needs better leaders. And our network focuses on you, your business, your family, in your business, whether you are a first generation business entrepreneurial or sixth generation legacy business. Before we get started, I'd like to remind all of you watching live that you can ask us questions and just post them, and we'll see if the time permits to get through them all. Okay, so now let's get the conversation flowing. Last month, and I'll hit it out with this question for you guys. Last month, Constant Contact featured a story about some of the challenges facing family businesses. And one of the challenges it highlighted was burnout. And I thought that was quite timely, because we are now hopefully exiting a very severe pandemic. And we know that family business blend the lines between work and life, business and family. And we also have a lot of our assets tied to the family business and making burnout almost unavoidable. So what have you guys done to minimize the risk of burnout in your family business, and some reflections around that? And Fatima, we'll start with you.
Dealing with crisis is fundamentally should be woven into the very DNA of how an organization operates. And that is what I've seen within our own business. We've gone through a series of transformation over our 35-year journey. And by the way, Håkon, I should just point out that we were, as Abacus, Coopers and Lybrand when I joined them. So we were part of the global network. We were part of the Middle East, Pakistan region, which reported into EMEA. So it was not family business per se. It was obviously governed by the global network, first CNL and then subsequently PwC. And in that legacy, I believe that is how my initial training was, that how do you ensure strong governance mechanisms? How do you ensure that the monitoring mechanisms are not only in place in terms of policies, but also they allow the culture to not be, you don't distract from what the culture of the organization is and what is the fundamental value proposition of an organization. So if I go fast forward at that point in time to 2003, which was a very traumatic time for our organization, because PwC Global, as we all know, was bought out by IBM following the Sarbanes-Oxley Act and the conflict of interest that ensued, etc. So we know what happened for the professional or the large audit firms at that point in time due to the independence feature. Our board at that time, I wasn't on the board, I was just starting my career, well, a few years into my career. They took a very difficult decision to go independent. And going from a global to a local status is not easy. You had to rebuild. We lost 50% of our people. We lost 70% of our clients. But fundamentally, what happened was that our focus changed. We said we will have Abacus at the heart of who we are as our brand, and we will align with global leaders. For example, like SAP or Mercer, etc., Amazon, the list goes on. And we will bring the best knowledge to our people. And they will then deliver value to our clients and to our partners. In a nutshell, that is what our value proposition is, and that is what our model is. But in that, the vision and the strategy is developed here at the board level. It is not cascaded from a global office, or it is not cascaded through the reach. So going back to your question, I believe this background was very important, because the journey that I've made to this leadership level of CEO has fundamentally prepared me for the crisis that ensued, not only in the last 2 years of the pandemic, but also how do we prepare ourselves for the transformation. And what I saw was a remarkable turnaround and a remarkable focus of the board and the leadership to take a step back, despite, March 21st, at least for Pakistan, it was March 21st, everything shut down in 2020. And the next day now what do we do? We're all at home, locked up in our houses, all businesses are shut, governments are shut. What do we do? And the first thing was well-being of our people and sustainability, business continuity. Then what are the next steps to ensure? And in that was the idea to seek opportunities in times of crisis. So we all allocated roles to each other in terms of how do we identify, but at the same time, work together to help each other out of this particular crisis and this situation. So I really believe that the burnout can be managed if there are strong governance mechanisms. There is a viewing and a commitment to institutionalization. And of course, if you have the right person in the right seat.
Excellent. I like that, right person in the right seat. Luis, you want to give some of your reflections?
Yes, thank you. First of all, the risk of burnout is high, especially during times of high growth and crisis. And having said that, in family business dynamics, everything tends to be more emotional. So when you add emotion to complex context, things can get a little bit heavy, especially for family members. So in our case, I would say that we have applied three approaches. The first of all is delegation. I mean, you have to rely on other people, delegate not only tasks, but delegate responsibility and authority. The bigger the business, the more complex the business, the more you need to rely on a team of people. The second approach is to prioritize. That's something that we did very early on in the COVID crisis. Not everything is important. So many initiatives can be stopped or delayed or slowed down. Others can't. But you need to stop doing stuff. Otherwise, burnout is going to be inevitable. And I mean, COVID changed from night to day how we were doing stuff, and so prioritization was key. And the third one, which is probably the most important, and it worked really well for us, is to have a people first approach. If you are feeling burnout as a leader, it's very likely that your team and your employees are feeling burnout as well. So ask yourself how you feel, ask your people how they feel, and just asking those simple questions may do magic. So that worked really well for us. Again, delegation, prioritization, and a people first approach.
Very clear recipe there, Luis. And I really like, you both addressed that uncertainty, that DNA, and how important it is to have the right people at the right spot, and that people first approach. My own reflection was, since we are in the entertainment space, we were shut down by law. The government came in and said, you cannot operate. We were shut down. And we looked at it like a soccer field and said, okay, if we are not going to burn out, we need to understand which role we have on the soccer field. So we divided our team in defense and offense, just by what type of person are you? Are you an offensive person or a defensive person? And that turned out amazingly. They were playing off each other's strengths, and we felt like we were a soccer team going out on the soccer field, and playing and knowing that we had our buddies that we could center the ball to, and continue playing back and forth like that. And, who knows? I thought this COVID thing would last for maybe a couple of weeks, and then we end up, 2 years later. So very, very good. So So if we look at that DNA element, any reflection, Fatima, about what is important in crisis when you want to grab that DNA? You tell that really dramatic story about 50% cut, and your business is really struggling, and you're still talking about DNA. So what was some of the key thing you held on to?
I would actually also take a page from what Lewis has said. It's about the people. And as I said, right people at the right seat. And at the same time, be very cognizant of what is your vision, what is the value proposition of your organization, really. If you're creating value, and we are in a professional services environment, that means we have knowledge workers. Effectively, in a simplistic words, we are selling the knowledge of our people to add value to the other organizations across industries. That means their understanding of the complexities, not only of the business that we work with, the clients that we work with, but also the industries and the sectors that they belong to. And then there's the element of legal and regulatory requirements. So the DNA is about a focus towards excellence, about preparation, and how do you fundamentally develop a learning environment where you work as a team and you understand that the set of responsibilities have to cascade in such a way that it adds value to the team first, and then it adds value to the client. So it links up to managing conflict, but it also links up to ensuring that there is a conscious effort that is made to align with the culture and the values of the organization. That means hard decisions have to be taken. We all saw that. We experienced that in the last 2 years during the pandemic as well. Unfortunately, hard decisions had to be taken for certain people whose journey could not continue with us. It is painful. Yes, it is emotional when you talk about family businesses because there is an attachment to individuals who have given a large part of their working years to the organization as well. But then hard decisions have to be taken in order to ensure that the best interest of the business comes first, and to ensure that understanding is inculcated to keep it professional becomes extremely important. So I feel that once people recognize that the decisions are fair, they're equitable, and they're transparent, I feel automatically the replication and the consistency of policies application gives that sense of confidence to people that they're not being unfairly treated. And then the behaviors follow. So that is how the entire chain of maintaining the culture was followed, even despite this crisis, where people came first, their well-being came first, and of course the business continuity, especially where you faced mental well-being challenges at all levels. And it again then goes back to your earlier question of burnout. So all of that had to be maintained, but a very objective viewing on we will be out of this crisis. Well, it was anybody's guess 2 years ago. But right now, the line of sight, I believe, is better than it was 2 years ago. What do we do next? And are we going to stay relevant in the future?
Thank you, Fatima. Luis, what's your take on the DNA?
Yes, I believe that in family business, the values and culture constitute that DNA, and your values are really tested in times of crisis and stress. So as we discussed before, family business always tend to have a people first approach. So from what I have seen is that family businesses did react differently to the COVID crisis, being very mindful of their people. That's the approach we had, and we were all businesses all over the world. We were bounded by government regulations. But what sets family business apart is that, and that's what we did, is that we did not just comply with the governmental regulations, but we went beyond because we wanted to take care of our people. So there were many things that we did beyond from what was expected or requested. I mean, we provided access to doctors and medicines. We provide the weekly food and perks, kits for families, first-line employees to take to their families. We developed a support hotline where employees and their families could call to get counseling or psychological counseling. And another example is that although many of our financial results were hurt, we honored the bonuses as if the financials metrics were met. So those are a few examples on what it means to have a people-first approach with the values deeply ingrained into the DNA.
So let's then move a little bit deeper and a little bit tougher, since we know that the factors that leads to burnout is very often conflicts. And in any business, conflict is unavoidable and can be highly unpleasant, to say the least. But in family business, conflict can take a toll not only on your business but also your family, and it can be devastating for the family, for the company, for the value creation in the community you are. So how do you prepare for that issue, and what is some of the conflict resolutions that you guys have kind of addressed? Luis, you want to start?
All right. Well, first of all, whenever I faced conflict in either of the two scenarios or two places where I wear a different hat within family businesses, I like to remind myself that it's a family business where conflict is a given. Conflict, it's natural, it's human, especially when there are emotions involved. And as I mentioned before, in family business, there are emotions everywhere, because you might be dealing with your father, your sister, your cousins. So things tend to be a bit more emotional. So it's very likely that conflict is always around the coordinator. So having said that, you need to accept conflict and embrace it. And I mean, I don't want this to sound as poetry, but really conflict with the right attitude and approach can bring a lot of value to the table. Because if you address conflict with open communication, that's gonna develop trust. And trust, it has this magic ingredient in family businesses that can help to drive things forward. So don't take trust and good communication as given. You need to work on it by embracing conflict. So as I said before, the best way to embrace conflict is to develop trust and promote an open communication environment, but accept it and embrace it.
Embrace the conflict. A lot of us try to avoid it, but message received. Fatima.
And just let me add one thing. If you're in a family business and you haven't seen conflict in quite a while, it's because something is not being put on the table, and probably a time bomb is building out behind your back. So conflict is given. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. Fatima, your reflections?
Actually, what Luis says is very similar to my thought process, and that is how I would handle conflict, or I have handled conflict. There are many situations where you have to ensure open communication. That is the starting point of addressing conflict. We must, we must keep in mind that if we as business leaders, let conflict fester, or we brush it under the carpet, then we're damaging the organization the most. It brings in toxic culture, it brings in negativity, and it brings in unproductivity. And of course, that hits the bottom line at the end of the day. So as business leaders, we must be attuned, our own personalities should be attuned towards, one, anticipating that there will be conflict at all levels. Conflict is not something at the entry level because new people are coming into the workforce. I feel the greater part of the conflict is at sometimes the senior leadership levels because of personalities or egos, etc., and of course, conflicting business targets. Then there is the concept of the family members. And even in that, there has to be a conscious effort to compartmentalize the personal from the professional. It's not easy, but a conscious effort must be made to say, if I am disagreeing with you at the boardroom table or in a meeting, hear what is being said rather than who is saying it. Try to, it's not, again, it's a human behavior. So we are humans, there are emotions definitely, but try to understand the reasoning behind it. As I say, look at the man and look at the words that the man is saying or the woman is saying rather than who is saying it, especially if you have a bit of a conflict. So I believe this is extremely important to create a culture of open communication, call it as it is, and be able to have productive conversations. And then once that conversation is done, have an action plan. So when we walk out of the room, one, we've resolved the conflict, hopefully. Sometimes it takes longer than one meeting. The second is there is a concerted effort and an action plan. What are the next steps? And if it does, the conflict does arise, then we refer back, end it, and then go back to productive time. That is how trust is built, that we are willing to listen, actively listen to each other, no matter who you are. Because at the end of the day, it's about teamwork. It's about working together, resolving our issues. Maybe someone is going through a personal crisis and therefore they need that support, even in the family. So we should not assume that just because we are a family, we know what's going on with each other because we meet so frequently. We don't know what's happening with our personal emotions. So talk it out and then move on. I feel these are extremely important elements, and that's how it cascades into the working of how everyone else within the organization behaves.
Thank you, Fatima. And I kind of bringing with me from what you guys said, embrace the conflict, but sort it. Make sure you know if it's a business or it's a family, and it's all about trust. And to tie that in, a lot of people I speak to in family business, they don't talk about the hard issues before they happen, before they're dragged into them. These what if conversations, what if something happens, just having a setting and invite the family to say, okay, now we're going to talk about what if scenarios. It doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow. It doesn't mean it's ever going to happen, but let's discuss it. What if, and how would we handle that? Because if you create that roadmap in this what if land, then it's so much easier to go back. Oh, we discussed that, my uncle, his health issues. Now we are in that situation. Okay, now we can deal with it. So I think that's really interesting. And if we then go on with that, what if we are on succession? Succession doesn't happen that often in family business. When it happens, it can invite conflicts. And so how do you guys look at, sustaining the family unity and the harmony, ensure the business prosperity, but also have a succession plan? You want to start, Fatima?
Thank you very much. And this is something I've seen in other family businesses where it can break not only the family, but it can break the organization as well, which is very unfortunate because it starts with the conflict, which is not being addressed, and it festers, and then unfortunately it blows up, and relationships are destroyed. So fundamentally, whether it is an organization or a business initiative that one is focusing on or trying to handle a crisis, I go back to the DNA. So you rightly pointed out, Håkon, that this is about scenario planning and anticipating what are the options that are available. That is linked to succession planning as well. So maybe the family members are not the usual suspects, if I may use that term. Maybe you could be looking at other possible business structures which will allow sustainability and continuity of the business, because that is extremely important as well. in that continuing to have your share in the business. You can continue to have majority shareholding, but maybe the family member's role will change or their ownership structure may change. But if we are open to different options, for example, we went through a bit of a crisis last year on the family front. And in that, our governance structure had to take a fundamental change. Roles were changed. That's how one of the reasons I came into the CEO position as well. But then individuals within the family and then also our professional leadership were given enhanced roles. The reason why we acted with agility was we had actually prepared ourselves for different scenarios. And then a year onwards, we're looking at different options as well, which does not necessarily mean the same business structure. But to have that openness of thought is extremely critical, especially in the world that we live in right now, which is severely disrupted, whether it is through technology, of course, post pandemic, climate change, the list goes on. And this is a reality which is facing all of us, and more so family businesses. Until we're open to ensuring that if we want to stay relevant, if we want to ensure sustainable value, we need to be open to maybe other business structures of maybe being listed on the stock exchange if we're not, of IPOs, etc., through acquisitions, mergers, which may dilute our role or shareholding. Like Lewis is also a non-executive director. And some, unfortunately, I've seen in family businesses that, the openness is not there because you want to hold on to what you have. That is extremely important in succession. Have that.
You broke up a little bit, Fatima.
Okay. Where did I break up?
Succession was the last thing we heard.
Yes. So what I was mentioning was that it is extremely critical for when looking at succession planning to be open to different options, which may fundamentally be challenging the previous legacy which brought you to the point that you're here. So at Abacus, for example, after 35 years, we're looking at various options. How do we pan out the next 35 or 100 years, which is beyond our lifetimes, which may not include the traditional structure or conventional structure that has gotten us over here. So it's very important to be open. As I said, the world is very disrupted right now. It's anybody's game. There are opportunities. Find that silver lining and take it forward.
Thank you, Fatima. So, Luis.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to respond in two parts. And the first one, I want to come back to what you said before on the what if scenario, what if discussion, which is not precisely only for succession. But in my family business, what worked really well is that we spend a lot of time developing our family protocol. And we, as I mentioned before, I'm third generation, but we have in the family business, there's 4 second generation siblings and 14 third generation cousins. Of course, not everybody works or is involved in the family business, but everybody was involved in the development of the family protocol. And it's not the document itself and the agreements that are of the most value. Of course, those are important, but the most important part is the process through which the protocol was developed. Because simply discussing it, aligning, and having those what if questions helps the family align the vision, align the scenarios, and if conflict or those scenarios actually trigger out later on, you're going to be very aligned. So process is very important, not just responding the what if questions. And taking that into succession. Succession, it's very tricky, can be very emotional. I like to say that succession is a slow cook process. We've been working out a succession plan and executed it in phases, and we've been in it for more than 10 years. And we initially did a mistake, is that we viewed succession as a succession of one, call it the leader, the president, the CEO. And of course, that's an important part of succession in family businesses. But you should see succession as a succession of a system, of a governance system, a corporate governance system, a family governance system. And how will the next generation interact and be involved? In our case, the third generation, the second generation delegated to us the development of that succession plan. And that worked really, really well because it incorporated what we want and it helped us align the long-term vision. But what works from your family, that's very particular because all families are different, but that worked really well for us.
But I think you're very right on, Luis. And I love this slogan, succession is a slow cook process. And I think we can generalize it even more and say governance is a slow cook process. It's not, somebody writing a document somewhere in an office corner. It's about investing in it, and it's like you guys says, it's all about the process and getting people involved and ownership of it. Now we got a great question on social media, and I would like you, Fatima, to start out with it, because I know you were announced the CEO of your company the 8th of March. Which is the Women's Day. You are a female CEO of a large corporation. So I would like you to address some of these things. And the question that comes, that's kind of overarching of this is that, do you find generational difference for business operation and conflicts? So that, if you would like to give a little depth to that.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, 2021, March 8th was when the announcement went out that I'm this new CEO at Abacus. A coincidence, but a very good coincidence. And we received this feedback that Abacus is always right on the money because, their timing is impeccable. So we got lucky there. And I was very grateful for all the confidence that was extended as well. Generationally, yes, I believe that is something that one needs to be cognizant of, no doubt about it. At the same time, to also balance the fact that the elder generation has rich experience and they have the energy as well. They drove that. In our case, where I'm the second generation. So the 35 years has been built on a vision and excellence model, which is continuing to be lived at this point in time. And we are taking that forward. My brothers are also involved in this. But the idea is to balance it out and ensure that it is not only, it's about the value system. I feel there are two parts to the generation. One is, what is the value system that has been inculcated, which is respect for all generations? Two, how do you leverage the rich experience and the passion and energy and new ideas of the next generation and have a fusion which will benefit not only the individual, but also obviously the teams and the organizations around. And if we go into it from a positive mindset, then I believe these generational differences can be managed effectively. Of course, there are times that some kind of intervention is required to sort out conversations, which may be particularly hard and emotional. But at the same time, I feel that it goes back to the value system, which drives how we fundamentally add value to each other. I remember reading in Peter Drucker's book, I'm sorry, the name is slipping my mind, but he specifically mentioned that how the age of the elder generation or their wisdom must be not forgotten and recognized to add value to the next generation, especially in the 21st century. I think he mentioned it in his book in talking about the 21st century strategies and business models as well. And I feel that is more true now than before, because of this focus on celebrating, the startups, the new young enterprising business leaders that are emerging, which is fantastic because it's driving the economy, it's creating jobs, it's creating new ideas. But we must ensure that we create a fusion, as I said, between the elder generation and the next generation. And that is what we have to be mindful. Just if they have certain issues or a disconnect, we may also have that disconnect. So it's working things out.
Excellent, Fatima. Luis, your reflections?
You know, I loved Fatima's answer. There is very little to add, but I love, Fatima, what you said on the balance. You know, balancing out the gray hair with the new energy, the fusion, and let me dive a little bit deeper into what you mentioned about intervention. Don't be afraid to ask for third-party help, because sometimes whether you're resolving a conflict, a communication issue, or blending ideas of that gray hair within energy, sometimes you know the older generation will not be precisely looking at first at professionals. They might be looking at their nephews that that they remember riding a bike when they were 8 or 10 years old. So sometimes you need some external help to build bridges within that communication and to bring that fusion to the maximum potential. So don't be afraid to ask for help.
So we got another great questions, which is, how do you separate professional from family relationship at work? So how do you kind of help each other with making sure, this is a family issue, so that belongs to the family circle, and this is a business issue, and that belongs to the business circle. How do you make sure that your Christmas dinner or your Thanksgiving dinner doesn't become a boardroom meeting? Very difficult. Any comments on that?
Should I go first?
Go ahead.
All right. Well, first, I would guess the book answer will say that you need to draw the 3 circles and trying to point out where you sit and what business space or meeting that discussion would be possible, and that might work sometimes. But the truth is that sometimes you cannot separate those discussions, because even if you have separate instances, the emotions are always gonna be there. So have that in mind. I mean, try to, if you have, as Fatima mentioned something earlier, if you have a clear governance process, and be clear, okay, this is a discussion for the board, this is a discussion for the executive committee, or this is a discussion for the family committee, that will surely help a lot. But be mindful that you're going to go to a family dinner and there are going to be discussions about business, or you're going to be at the boardroom table and there's going to be discussion about a family issue. So it's really hard to separate it. But if you can differentiate that your job and your family's business from your identity, because although it's a family business and you may be an owner, you are not your work. So if you're clear on your identity and that you have several places within an identity, that's gonna help out to filter out those emotions when you're having in the different places. So it's really hard to make that separation, but if you have a clear governance process, it's gonna help a lot.
So Fatima, you talked a lot about benchmarking and partnered with some of the best companies in the world. Has that been a part of your journey in your company by dividing family and business and so on?
Absolutely. And just before I get into that, if I may just make a comment on a lighter note, in our case, my mother sets the rule that no work talk at the dinner table. So that's how you do it. She's the one who then makes the rules. But one has that dynamic, and it does tend to, without noticing, it's unconscious, subconsciously, you're just talking about work. But as I said, we bring in the mother. As far as your question is concerned on the benchmarking part, yes, absolutely, it's definitely helped us define stronger governance, because when you focus on building standards which are also driven by other global leaders. For in our case, I believe we have, I think, around 15, 16 strategic partners, from Google to Amazon, AWS to SAP, etc. I mean, the list goes on, especially on the technology side. They also have their governance guidelines and their code of conduct and their standard operating procedures. So strong partnerships and strong relationships are driven by how do you create a win-win situation where both benefit. And at the end of the day, when partnerships are successful, but the partnership is only successful when the client or the customer gets what they want according to the expectation they have in whether it is engagement, whether it is service, whether it is satisfaction. So so our business is complex that way, that it is not just us developing our methodologies and tools. It is also we are safeguarding and it is a great responsibility, that how do you transfer that knowledge of another strategic partner to a client with the same level of integrity that they would do it when they are in-house. So you can see that the governance has to be very strong in terms of compliance, in terms of understanding what their focus is, and then how do you translate it as to how Abacus delivers, and how do you then ensure that the client is happy with what they are getting. So that obviously has an impact on how we operate as a business at the end of the day.
Very good. So I know we've focused quite a bit on the challenges, and we're coming to a close. So let's look at some of the advantages. And even though you guys have taken these challenges and really turned them around and shown how they can be dealt with. So according to a recent survey conducted by Family Enterprise USA, family-owned companies have shown incredible resilience and innovation to thrive and develop in the middle of crisis. And they're kind of hinting that maybe consistent leadership is one reason. Luis, what do you think? You agree, disagree? The other things that you think is key to that how the family businesses have dealt with the challenges associated with especially this pandemic that we've been through?
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, I completely agree with the statement. And maybe just I would say it's not precisely as the consistent leadership, because there are many non-family businesses where you can see also consistent leadership. Of course, that plays a big part. But I believe that what really sets the family business apart is that the family values are deeply ingrained in the way of doing business. And as mentioned before, there are many years or decades of a founder's vision, a culture, values, and that's what really pushes the family legacy forward. And when you have that on the background, the family legacy, that's very strong, and that's the legacy that pushes maybe that continuous leadership. So those values, that vision, that family legacy, combined with the people first approach, it's what really does magic, especially in times of crisis, such as COVID. I mentioned previously some of the approaches, the people first approach that we had at CMI, and it worked really well. And as you read about this in the media, people, your employees are never gonna forget how you treated them during the COVID crisis. So in the COVID crisis, we have seen family business take more aggressive people first approach and value-based approach to feed that family business legacy. So that's what sets family businesses apart.
I think that's great, Luis. Fatima, your thoughts?
It is, yes, absolutely. I liked what Luis has said about the family legacy, but it's also the understanding what that family legacy really is. and how will it define the future? Because there are times where individuals will say, okay, that was that generation. They catered to a different world. We are looking at a value proposition which may need fundamental change or transformation because the world is changing, etc. And, we're bringing new ideas. I feel that it is extremely important to really have a deep dive over how do you define family legacy. And just by changing your products and services or changing the focus, strategic objectives does not mean that the family legacy is not continued. And I completely resonate what Louis said about the culture and the values. In our organization, across the 35 years, we may have changed our brand name, we may change teams, our products, services, etc. But our values have remained consistent from day one. And we have a zero tolerance towards the violation or non-compliance of our values. I truly believe that is our legacy, and everything is built in terms of how you innovate and how you transform to stay relevant. That is a different conversation from a business proposition perspective. So I believe that is where sometimes family businesses get confused, and perhaps they either die a slow death or they have a bit of a deep valley, which takes a bit more longer for them to come out, maybe a generation. And if this is addressed right at the start, in terms of even having it on your governance dashboard, it would be easier.
I like that governance dashboard there, and I think the value consistency in the values. When we were shut down, our main message to our team, our employees, our region, our stakeholders, our suppliers was, we've been around since 1895. We survived the Spanish flu. We survived wars. We survived other crises. It's not going to end on my watch. I am not going to take any phone call from a headhunter and being asked to join another company. I'm here. I'm going to go through this with every one of you, and we are one team. And I think that strength, having that conversation with the bank and saying that I'm not going anywhere, was amazing. Having that conversation with the politicians, having that conversation with your team, it's unbelievable. And it's in those crises that really the family business, if you have those values and they are consistent, it's amazing what you can create. Very, very good. I think that's really energizing. So before we go, I'd like to ask one last question. Since you are a YPOer and you believe in creating better leaders, what benefits do you think is key for belonging to a community like YPO or similar, for a founder, entrepreneur, business leader, or any other? Fatima, you want to say something about that?
I believe the global networks are fantastic. I mean, this one that I connected with, I think it was a couple of years ago, I found it extremely useful in terms of, in our, well, at least I'll speak for myself, schedules can become very overwhelming, especially when you're balancing. I have 2 teenage boys and a husband and, family members, as well as then there are work responsibilities, which have been growing, especially over the last couple of years. It's not easy to filter through information, and you have to compartmentalize. So in the middle of a meeting, you may be getting a call, at least I would get a call from my son, and there's something that happened in school. So, sort of you have to prioritize what comes first. And it's very difficult at times, but you have to be also very sure what is more important, family or the business, even though they're both there are overlaps in terms of their importance in certain situations. So I feel that this particular network gives very valuable insights and a structure to the thought process in compartmentalizing, even the forum methodology that there is. It's sort of like a breather. It forces you to step back and say, it's all right, we're in the same boat, we will do this together. And then when you realize you're not alone, you feel less foolish and less awkward. And then you're geared up to go back and, so I feel that's been really valuable. The social connects, the learning opportunities that are there, and made some great friends along the way. So I feel it's an exceptional platform, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be part of it.
Thank you, Fatima. Luis?
Yes, let me complement what Fatima said, because I completely agree. For a moment, I thought it was myself speaking. But for me, YPO has marked an inflection point in my professional and personal development. Not only YPO has opened the doors for worldwide resources, contacts, and business opportunities, but it has also been an inspirational growth journey. And let me highlight three things. First, for me, YPO has been a base camp for lifelong learning and development. Second, YPO has set common grounds of growth with my wife and my children and my family. And third, and as Fatima said, some of my best friends are from YPO. We support each other in personal, family, and business issues. So when you have friends within the network, everything becomes more exciting. And that's what YPO is. It's business, it's personal, it's friends, it's lifelong learning, it's personal development, professional development. I love YPO.
Thank you, Luis.
Sorry, if I may just say one more thing. What I did not mention is the diversity angle. And that is something that needs to be applauded more so now than before. The respect and dignity that each individual, with whatever they identify with, is extremely important in this day and age. And I believe YPO is heading in the right direction in terms of celebrating that diversity and the inclusion mandate.
What a lovely conversation. I wish we had many more hours, and I really enjoyed our conversation today, connecting from all over the world. So a big thank you, Fatima, and big thank you, Luis, for joining us today. And a big thank you to those behind the scenes that made this possible. And thank you to all who has tuned in today to be a part of this conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, share it, connect it. I'm Håkon Lund, and this was a YPO Present Ask Expert. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Global Family Business Network. My name is Timothy Kozolic, and I'm the chair of the network. I look forward to sharing ideas, resources, and connections with you.
So my YPO experience started by asking questions. Who can help me making a board? Who can help me with governance? Who can help me with sibling rivalry, with conflicts? And I decided I need some help. I need someone to talk to. So I started traveling around, visiting other companies in my business area. Being the fourth generation, this is really important to me. And then I came to one person and he asked me, are you a YPO member? I said, I've never heard about YPO. And that's how I became a YPO member.
So one of the satisfying things about the work we do in the network is having members come to us after they've been involved in a program and tell us how important the program was for them, how it changed their lives. And one of the questions that's come to me then is, why aren't more people getting engaged with the network? And a friend of mine framed it this way. He said, family businesses often fall into two different groups. The first group, everything's going well. And they think they don't have to work on their family business. They just do the day-to-day things and assume the business will take care of itself. The other group is in crisis, and they don't want to seek out help because they are ashamed. They're afraid they're the only people who are dealing with this problem. They think they're broken in some unique way that's unique to their family. It has to do with the personalities in their family. And what we argue for in the network is both these groups need to get engaged. If you're not engaged because you're doing well, now is the time to get engaged before you have problems. If you're having challenges, don't be alone. Get engaged with the network. Get engaged with the Flash forum. Get engaged with the forum. Come to a program and find out that you're not alone. There are a lot of members who can help you out.
The Global Family Business Network serves our members in many different ways. We offer monthly global conference calls that cover topics that are relevant to every family enterprise, whether you're in the first generation or fifth generation, with incredible global world-class resources. We also offer once a year a signature event, which is a retreat that not only involves the YPO members, but their entire family gets to come and experience this retreat together in an environment with world-class resources, with peers of other families, all generations. Join us.
We have family business forums all over the world, and we're launching new forums in many regions of the world. The consistent message we hear is that my family business forum is one of the most powerful takeaways of my YPO membership. And our Flash forums, well, they're popping up in many regions of the world. It combines the safe haven of trust that we enjoy as members with really significant and meaningful takeaway around family business and how we can go back and really impact our businesses and family.
As a new YPO member, I found a safe haven of trust and immeasurable resources available for me at the Global Family Business Network. Most important, I found a network of peers and amazing members whom I can rely on to share and learn on issues in the business and in family. I would like to share with the new Global Family Business Network members that they can access immeasurable resources such as discussion boards, family forums, and amazing members who have vast experience in managing and operating family businesses. So I would like to welcome to join and get a glimpse of these wonderful opportunities that await you here.
We see family businesses around the world facing a big challenge with disruption. They don't know how to remain true to their values, but at the same time innovate and change. This is a need for a lot of companies, and of course that is true also for YPO members. The YPO Global Family Business Network helps its members to share ideas and best practices on how to face innovation with, at the same time, remaining true to your value, to the legacy and to the tradition that each of our members have. There are a lot of organizations around the world that deal with family business matters. YPO Global Family Business Network deals with this type of matters in a different way, in a very safe environment through our Flash forums and, of course, leveraging the confidentiality that we have within YPO. It is also very different to discuss best practices and issues in a YPO setting with another YPO member who's also at the lead of a family business of a certain size, and it is something truly unique to be able to do it according to the YPO standards. That is something that we cannot find in other organizations around the world. We are honored to have you as a member of the Global Family Business Network, and we look forward to connecting with you soon.